Hello, my name is Rick Hernandez, and I'm from Nevada County Cooperative Extension, and I am for the soils because it is the foundation of all our fruits and vegetables.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you could join us for the Soil, a conversation. I'm Eric Bentel, and I'm joined by a co-host, Mary Sketch Bryant, Executive Director for the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Our host, Jeff Ishii of On the Farm Radio, unfortunately is not able to join us today. We're very pleased to have Dr. Christine Mahoney with us today. Dr. Mahoney is the Chief Innovation Officer and a Professor of Politics and Public Policy within the Batten School of Leadership and Policy at the University of Virginia. So has a lot of interest in sustainability. Christine and her husband also operate Wayflowering Flower Farm in the Charlottesville area. So really pleased to have Dr. Mahoney with us and look forward to learning more about Wayflowering Farm and your journey in regenerative agriculture.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Christine, so I know we talked some about the systems thinking and the many hats you wear. I wonder if you could jump in a little more about what inspired you to start the farm? You talked about this desire to have an impact on the ground, but why flowers? Why bees? What inspired you there?
Sure. So my academic work is on social entrepreneurship and impact investing, and my last book was about how do we use social entrepreneurship and impact investing to support the world's forcibly displaced. And so I was on the board of the International Rescue Committee here in Charlottesville, and we were helping newly arriving Americans get settled in their new town. And so I had seen a lot of really creative social enterprise models that were using labor models to try to incorporate the displaced into new thriving jobs. And so I have always loved flowers. I always loved gardens. I worked in the greenhouses when I was at Penn State. And I was thinking about different social enterprise models I've seen in my professor job. And there's some beautiful ones out there, like fields of lavender and fields of indigo, but those are monocrops at the end of the day, and they only bloom at one moment. And so they're only good for pollinators at one moment. And so I saw the story about this incredible flower farmer in the Pacific Northwest who runs a company called Floret. And so I was like, I think this is the solution, right? I can create beautiful jobs for people displaced by violence, and I can support pollinators, support soil health, sequester carbon, and have a beautiful rolling bloom all season long. And so that's what we do. We grow over 200 varieties throughout the season. We're here in, I'm sure you have listeners all over the country, but we're here in Virginia. So our season goes, we have a high tunnel. So we start in around March, maybe a couple blooms late February, and we go all the way to the end of October. Usually we have dahlias right till Halloween. And so we have more than 75% of the field in perennials now, and we overwinter our dahlias, we overwinter our lilies. So we're doing no-till or very low-till. We only have about less than 20% of the field in annuals. And we're doing cover cropping, we're doing compost, all of the things. And so in that way, we have something new, dozens of new varieties coming into bloom every couple of weeks. So it's beautiful. We do cut your own. So that's one of our main revenue drivers. People come to our farm. We're just about a mile from Monticello. So we get lots of visitors to the Charlottesville area for UVA and Monticello. So people can come, wander the fields, cut their own flowers, and then they can head over to my husband's tasting tavern where we do honey tastings and mead tastings. So mead is a honey wine. And so his company is called Thistle Rock Mead Company. And so we talk about a whole bloom to bottle experience. So people can be on the farm, they can learn about regenerative agriculture, they can learn about soil health, they can see the pollinators. It's bananas out there. Right now, we have just beds and beds of celosia, marigolds, roses are coming back into bloom, and it is just humming with life. It's really incredible. And so people get to experience the farm and then get to go taste the kind of bounty of the farm through our honey and our mead.
Today, we're talking with Dr. Christine Mahoney, the professor of politics and public policy at UVA, and also more specifically the owner and operator of Wayflowering Flower Farm. And if you want to learn more about Wayflowering, you can go to their website at WAYFLOWERING.com. That's Wayflowering Flower Farm. Christine, if you could tell us a little bit about how you define regenerative. I know in talking with some farmers, they don't want to jump on a specific word or and others see it as a journey, but we'd be interested in hearing how you view regenerative agriculture.
Sure. Yeah. So I read up a lot about this during COVID. Read all of your materials on For the Soil and lots of books on regenerative agriculture and regenerative farm design. And so, as many of your listeners know, we're losing a lot of topsoil to erosion, water, and to wind, and our kind of traditional agricultural practices are leaving the soil really depleted, right? And so the traditional way to get the nutrients back was through chemical fertilizers. And so, I've worked all over the world and I've seen farming practices all over the world. And it's interesting. Sometimes you're in a very quote unquote poor country, but they're doing regenerative agriculture, right? Because they're doing it the old fashioned way and their plants are doing wonderfully and they have livestock integrated into their crop rotation. And so the more I read, the more I became convinced that if we take good care of the soil, we'll have better outcomes from a farming standpoint. And so for us, that means no till, right? As we know, if we don't till, we don't rip up not only all of those roots, but also all the mycorrhizae. That is a fungus that's working in symbiosis and relationship with the plants and their roots. It allows the plants to have further surface area and, they're more drought resistant, they're more pest resistant because they're better able to get nutrients. And so no-till is really important to us. And that also helps kind of keep the soil and helps us not lose the topsoil that we're doing so much work to build. We have animals on our farm. We have horses, we have pigs, we have chickens, we have geese, we have turkeys. And so we incorporate our own compost operation. We also source in compost from a local, very high quality compost producer. And then for us, that also means no chemical herbicides, no chemical pesticides, right? So we are a regenerative flower farm for humans, but we also are supporting our livestock, which are honeybees for our mead and honey operation. And so we don't want to kill our own livestock, right? So we take good care of our livestock, but in doing so, we're creating this incredible space for local pollinators. You likely have heard about how challenging the almond fields of California are for pollinators, right? There's this one moment in spring where they're gloriously in bloom, and then there's nothing, right? Because there's a monocrop, there's no forage for the pollinators, native or honeybees. And so we make sure that we're having a ton of biodiversity in the field. As I mentioned, over 200 varieties. And so that supports a range of different pollinator types. We have beds and beds of lilies, for example. It's alive with hummingbirds in the spring and in June. So you'll see at different parts of the field, at different parts of the season, different pollinators and probably thousands of them. For us, it also, in addition to no-till and no sprays, we do still need to tend to the flowers. In addition to selling to cut your owners and to the farmers market, we sell to floral designers that are doing wedding work. No bride wants an Eaton rose, right, in her bouquet. So we do physical protection, for example, of our dahlias and our roses. We use little mesh bags. We grow organic pumpkins. I think we might be the only ones in the state. We have to scrape off all of the pumpkin, the squash beetle eggs off the leaves. We do spray with a baking soda water mix to prevent downy mildew and powdery mildew on our roses and on our pumpkins. And so those are some of the strategies that we use. I think that is most of them. Oh, and also cover cropping, obviously. So we mulch, we cover crop, we use silage tarps, we overwinter our dahlias, so we have to pack those in. So a lot of people in a lot of parts of the country dig up their dahlia tubers and store them kind of like you would a potato. We cut ours down after Halloween. We pack them with leaves, straw, mulch, and then we cover them all with silage tarps. And so we do kind of everything we can do to kind of prevent erosion and keep the soil happy and keep the worms happy and all of the other millions of creatures living in the soil.
And Christine, can you talk a little bit about your learning process being a new farmer, not a multi-generational?
Yeah, totally. Well, I thank Erin Binzakrantz of Floret. She has an online class that like teaches soup to nuts how to start a flower farm. And as an educator, I've been a professor for almost 20 years, and it was so well done. And it was so, these little nuggets of, there'd be every week for 6 weeks, there was a course released, and it had these, sometimes 9-minute, 10-minute segments. And it was just so manageable. You could have a day job and then on your lunch break, learn how to seed, right? Or, after dinner, learn about, soil health, for example. And so that was incredible for me. I don't know if, I think a lot of what she taught probably would be helpful if you were a vegetable farmer as well. But, being a lifelong learner in higher ed, because like, my PhD is in political science. My first book was on advocacy and activism. Then I was working in refugee rights and just seeing the failure of that. And then I was like, we need a new solution. Maybe that's social entrepreneurship and impact investing. And all of that I've learned on the job. So kind of every couple of years, I'm learning like an entire new space, and things are changing, right? And so it was similar to things that I've needed to learn for my job in the academy. It was like, okay, I can learn soup to nuts how to do this. And in 4 years, I've learned a great deal. And there's so many great resources out there, free resources, right? Like I've listened to your podcast and the No-Till podcast, the No-Till Flower Farmer podcast. So yeah, I'm sure it's much easier these days than trying to learn how to farm, 50 years ago.
And Christine, within social entrepreneurship, often there's talk about scale and impact. And I know working with food systems, and particularly with smaller and mid-sized farms, the idea of how to help farmers gain some leverage and position in the marketplace. I know Wayflowering Flower Farm is also part of the Central Virginia Flower Collective. If you could tell us a little bit about that and your involvement.
Definitely. Yeah. So this year we started hosting the Central Virginia Flower Collective at our cooler. So all 9 farmers drop off on Mondays, and then our driver delivers to florists and floral designers on Tuesdays. We have an administrator who's incredible, right? She is the one that is interfacing with the floral designers and the florists, planning out, when they have weddings a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out, what their color palette is, what they need. And it's really hard for any one flower farm to deliver everything a florist needs for a 100-person wedding, but we can do it as a collective. And so it's a whole new revenue stream for us. We work through Rooted, which is, to your point, it's a tech platform to help originally flower farmers, and they've just scaled up to include food farmers as well. And it's like one of these tech solutions that it saves time. Once you put all of your products up for the season, you can archive them when they're done growing, and you can use them again the next season. They help you interface with buyers on their schedule, right? So if they're buying at 11 o'clock at night and you're sleeping because you have to get up at 5 o'clock to harvest, that's fine, right? So that tech platform helps us a lot. And the collective has, been incredible. It just allows all of the farmers to do what they do well, which is mostly focusing on farming and harvesting. And then our administrator, who's great at interfacing with floral designers, helps us move a lot more product than we would alone.
We just have a couple minutes left, but would love to hear a little bit. I think you also do agritourism,
Yes.
with an educational focus, just to hear a little bit about that.
Definitely. Yeah. So we've had, I was so surprised, like we had lots and lots of garden clubs reaching out to us wanting to learn about our processes. And I thought, well, they all have beautiful gardens. I'm surprised they want to come see our garden, but they did. And so, we get a lot of visitors we have something called Virginia Garden Week, right? Where people come through and they want to see other people's gardens and how they're doing things. So we do tours, a full bloom to bottle tour where guests can come, they tour our flower field, and then they tour our apiary, which is where we keep our honeybees there. And then they tour our mead production facility. And then they go to the Thistle Rock Mead Company tasting tavern and do a whole tasting of honey and mead and food. And so that's been really exciting for people that want to just learn more about how we can farm in a different way. We've even had master gardeners come through, and I'm thinking I've only been doing this for 4 years, and some of these master gardeners have been gardening for 70. But we've learned a lot, and we're doing it at a much larger scale. And so I think people are impressed to see. It's really beautiful. Another thing that we find often is people who love gardens come and they know how much their own garden is, how much work it is, and then they're like, how are you doing 100-foot beds? This is incredible, So yeah, so we do that piece. And one thing too that's been really surprising, we love having the supporting biodiversity impact. We love having the carbon sequestration and mitigation impact. But one thing we've heard a lot from guests that come to the farm in the meadery are how at peace they feel there. Moms with children that have, sensory overload challenges. They're like, they come out here and they just decompress and they feel so at peace being among the flowers and having the quiet. So a lot of people have said it brings them a lot of peace too. So we do kind of yoga in our flower field, and we do different events in the flower field to give people an opportunity to kind of unplug and connect with the soil in a different way.
As a mother of a 2-year-old, I think I need to come out.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it looks like our time is up, and we're very pleased again to have Dr. Christine Mahoney with us from the University of Virginia, but then also owner and operator of Wayflowering Flower Farm, and would encourage you all to visit the website wayflowering.com, where they define their farm as a social enterprise where they practice regenerative farming practices to sequester carbon, enrich the soil, enhance biodiversity, strengthen local ecosystems and pollinator habitats, all while experiencing a better connection to the land and the beauty that surrounds us. So thank you again for joining us, Christine, and look forward to sharing this with our listeners.
Thank you for having me.
Hey everybody, this is Jeff Ishii. I am so sorry that I missed that conversation. What a great conversation with Dr. Christine Mahoney with the University of Virginia. One quick reminder about our new soil health posters. You'll see those on display at the website forthesoil.org. That's the digit 4, thesoil.org. Scroll down just a little bit, and you'll see those beautiful, very artistic posters all about soil health and the 4 core principles of soil health. Once again, that's at forthesoil.org. Just scroll down to the poster section and click on Learn More. For the Soil, a conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. If you have a specific question about soil health, call your local extension office, your local USDA service center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.